Hi, everyone. If you're just joining us, if you could please place your phone on mute, we sure would appreciate it. And we're going to get started.
Hey, Ms. Holly.
Hey,
How you
Dr.
doing
Carter.
today? You all right?
It's nice to see so many of our familiar friends and family. I'm going to call you family because it feels that way for sure.
And I'm driving, so I can't have the video right now.
You're absolutely okay. In fact, everyone who's on here, you don't even have to be on video. This is one of those meetings where you don't want to be, you don't have to be, because we're here to share some information and get you connected to resources, and we're going to be sharing our screen and doing all of that. We have lots of folks still joining. Jacinta, if you want to keep your eye on that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our director and let her get started.
So I had to unmute, but first of all, good afternoon, everyone. I hope that you all had a great weekend, and I'm sure your weekend was full of thinking about this upcoming bidders conference, TA training, whatever you want to call it. So first and foremost, on behalf of the council members of the Children's Services Council of Leon County, we are so happy to have this procurement released. And just so glad that you are joining us to learn more about it, to get assistance with it, answer any questions you may have, and so on. We are committed to doing the best job that we absolutely can do, and understand that as we move through this process, there may be things we need to change or augment, and we will gladly do that as well. I think it's worth mentioning, Holly will mention it when she goes through, but let me mention it just one more time. For this funding, we are looking for programs that are already existing that can expand capacity. And we are looking for innovation in the form of a new way of doing it. So for example, taking the mountain to Muhammad, if you will, and please don't be offended if you are Muslim, but I like to use that term. So when we can't bring Muhammad to the mountain, we're going to bring the mountain to Muhammad. So bringing services to our children, youth, and families where they are and in their neighborhoods and zip codes. So with that, thank you again. We look forward to possibly working with all of you. And as you have questions, be sure to let us know. And so with that, I will turn it back over to Holly.
Thank you so much, Sika. On behalf of Sika, myself, and Jacinta, the work that we're going to do over these next 5 weeks and getting information resources out to providers truly will be a labor of love, and we're very excited to work with a round of volunteers to help us evaluate the proposals that you might be submitting. And so today's intent is to walk you through where to find the application, to go over that application in great detail, to talk about the resources that are available to you to help you make the best proposal that you can, as well as to walk you through the actual portal that's being hosted in SurveyMonkey. If you received the email either directly from signing up on the listserv or from a previous event, or if it was forwarded to you by some of our community partners, you might have seen that one of the instructions that we're going to share with you is to really look at this application at the beginning and to prepare what you're going to submit, because it's not a system that you might be used to with other local community funders where you can start an application, save it, and come back. So we're going to walk you through the best way of submitting your application today. The other thing I want to share before we get started is that when we do get to questions and answers, we are going to ask that you submit those questions in writing so that they are actually in our record. what our plans are is after both the webinar today and the webinar tomorrow is to take all of the questions that were submitted and to have a written response as well as this audio recording that's going to be on our YouTube channel. It's actually being live streamed to YouTube right now, as will tomorrow's technical assistant. So if you're here today, don't feel like you have to also come tomorrow. You only have to come really to one to be able to get your questions on the record. The other thing that I'll state is that we're also not necessarily going to be responding to questions via email after tomorrow. So if you have questions that you haven't submitted, that you haven't submitted to us either on this technical assistance webinar or the one tomorrow, we will close the kind of the Q&A so that we have that comprehensive record so that everybody is on the same footing. So with that, I want to start by just really sharing our website, because that is going to be your best place to find all of the resources moving forward. On our website, cscleon.org, there's a couple of ways that you can find the information for this for this application for funding. Up here in the news dropdown, you'll see funding announcements. So you can click on funding announcements, and that will take you to our primary page for any contract that we have issued. You'll see our ITN and our RFI from previous work that we've done. Here is, of course, the first summer funding announcement with information. Now, before I go into everything that's here, I'm going to go back to our homepage, because if you land at this page and you forget where the funding announcement, for now, we have it right under here with our latest news. You can click on this image, and it's going to give you information all about it. And right here at the very front is that link to that news announcement page that I just highlighted a moment ago. All the information that is listed on this page exists inside of the actual funding document that I'm going to take you to, as well as all of the resources. So again, while that's information, this is the page that you want to be at. This is the page that will give you all of your resources, and this is the page you'll actually get to the online application. I want to reiterate one of the messages that that Ms. Green just posted or just said, and that is to expand, that this funding is intended solely to expand the capacity of existing programs to better meet the needs of children, youth, and families. And you might be thinking, what does that mean? Well, if you click on download full funding announcement, it includes examples of things that might be something that could get funded. Again, every application will be equally evaluated before any decisions for funding are made. But we just want to be clear that it's to expand the capacity of existing programs. It's not intended to pilot or test a new program. We are very interested in innovation and very interested in filling gaps. That will come after our full gap analysis and needs assessment is completed in June. Those decisions of how we fund, when we fund, what we fund, that will come later. So I just want to reiterate that message, that just because this round of funding is for existing programs only, that does not mean that this is what is going to be in the future. Underneath the full announcement, I'm going to go ahead and just click it open so that you can kind of see that it is, we tried to be simple. It's only a 5-page funding announcement versus, say, for example, our invitation to negotiate for our needs assessment, which was a lot larger. So we tried to kind of simplify the whole process. And I'm going to walk through this document, but there's going to be multiple times where it references a resource. So I'm going to kind of toggle back and forth, because all of the resources that are referenced are right here in this section. You might see my mouse kind of moving around a little bit, from our key outcomes and measures database to funding options A, which we'll explain what is in a minute, as well as our sample budget worksheet for those that may not have experience with budgets and things like that. All of everything that you'll need is right here. And then these technical assistance webinars that you see right now, if you see a register button, these will be shifted in the future. They will say view, and then they'll also, right underneath this will be the technical assistance Q&A document. So that will be available starting on Wednesday, that these will be shifted so that you can at any point come back, see exactly all of the instructions, as well as that Q&A document. Okay. With that, I'm going to turn it over here. And before I'm going to see if I can zoom in just a little bit to make it a little bit easier to see on your screen. Maybe I can get a thumbs up from someone in the audience that says that looks pretty good. You can see it. Thank you, Stephanie. You were the first one that I saw. I appreciate you. So with the program application overview, we start with just a reiteration of why the Children's Services Council was formed. An overview of this particular funding, reiterating the message that, again, Ms. Green and myself just went over, and really requiring what kind of the big kind of three things that you're going to need to have a successful application. The first one is that you have to align directly with at least one of our priority areas. They're all listed below. This list has not changed since when we published it last July. There are details about each of these areas in our draft gap analysis, and I can show you where to find that. If you have questions about any of these priority areas, we can absolutely help you kind of navigate through that. But you must align with at least one of them. When we get to the application, you'll see what's the one that you align with, that you're choosing, like this is the one I'm applying for. But that doesn't mean that your services might go across 3 or 4 of these. And you'll also be given the opportunity to identify, here's my primary, but here's some secondary ones that our services impact. The second thing that you have to demonstrate is how this proposal is a true expansion of services. So as we go through the application process, you will see where it says for you or asks for you to describe your current services, as well as your current budget for summer plan, for what you have planned for the summer, and then the expansion services, right? So we are restricted, and I think you might have seen this in some of our wording that's been out there, is that we cannot supplant or duplicate other funding. So this truly is designed to just expand your services. So we'll walk through how you can show that your proposal truly is an expansion of services. And finally, the third piece is how your proposal is supported by an infrastructure capable of collecting data to demonstrate program impact. Now, this might be the one where everyone is like, wait, what do you mean by that? A lot of our programs that are out there that have been routinely receiving funding from some of our already existing community partners probably aren't very surprised to see this. But some of our smaller organizations and entities that provide services, this might be new to you. So we want you to know that you can request training and technical assistance to comply with whatever you propose for data collection and reporting requirements. When we talk about identifying a tool that you're going to use, put it in your proposal. We will make sure that you have the training that you need to be successful. Our goal is to do this with you, not you do this for yourself and then just tell us what you did. We want you to be successful. We want every proposal that we receive to be, that is chosen for funding, to be successful. And so we are here to help with that. So I'm going to keep going down. And we will open it up for questions about the second half of this. So I'm going to get through everything. So as you're hearing questions, feel free, you can drop them in the chat and we'll come back to them.
Who would probably be any different from those people.
Could you mute your line? Thank you so much. So we want you to be able to ask questions and do that. So if you can drop those in the chat, that would be fantastic. And we'll come back to them as we get through this. So, eligibility and scope of service. Something that may be different from other funding applications is that any entity is eligible to apply for this funding. That includes if you're already getting money from the United Way or the Community Foundation or the CHSP process. Again, I'm going to reiterate that you cannot use these funds to supplant or duplicate existing funding. But this, I think there's an example on the screen that you'll see that. And this is just an example, a very simple math example, that if you receive funding to provide childcare scholarships, for example, and you have enough to give out 10 scholarships, maybe it's childcare, maybe it's a summer camp, maybe it's other types of services, and you say, hey, I could serve twice as many families if only I had twice as much money. If you can demonstrate in that your proposal, then that application could be accepted for consideration. So there are some examples here that are on the screen. If you've been following along with us, our planning committee identified a handful of these, and then we continue to brainstorm and choose a few more of just some examples. I want to just note that this list is not exhaustive. We want to encourage innovation of you kind of thinking through things, as long as it's designed to expand existing programs that you have demonstrated service provision by your agency. So as I mentioned, maybe it's childcare scholarships for summer learning, for summer camps. Maybe you run a summer camp and you've noticed for middle school and high school youth that there's been an intense uptick in mental health needs. And you were like, I really would love to add a mental health intern or a mental health specialist to our service provision, right? That would be an enhancement to an existing summer program. That's something that could be considered. Maybe it's you've noticed that you have great turnout at the services that you provide, but oftentimes transportation has been a barrier. And if only, right, you had funding for those transportation costs to better connect children, youth, and families, that's something that you could ask for. Maybe it's your emergency funding for certain things has been completely underfunded for years, and you know that historically you've seen an increase in that over the summer, and you say, wow, this is something that could really help for this summer, given what we know about the population that we're serving. There's a couple of additional examples here that have been discussed at our committees. Maybe it's you have some sort of mobile service delivery unit, whether it's a bus or a pod or you've done something and you're like, oh, wow, if I could add a second unit and a second staff person, we could serve even more families and go into even more neighborhoods. Or maybe it's that you need technology or another resource because you're providing services and you're doing pretty well at it, but something you've never really had is the technology or an individual to do that data entry or to like really track those outcomes, and you really want to be able to show that. So these are all kind of different and interesting ways that you can expand the capacity of your organization to better serve families. And so be thinking through those, and if you have questions, again, as Asika has dropped in the chat, feel free to drop those questions in there and we will come back to them. The next section that I just want to bring your attention to, and you'll see this in the evaluation section, is that we are going to issue additional points in the evaluation for three things. One, an entity who applies as an intermediary, specifically applying on behalf of multiple partners that exist in the community already. So they will, like, basically, if you can show that you are collaborating with others on your application, then that will get you a bonus point. There is no minimum or maximum for this. So serving as an intermediary could be two or more organizations coming together. If you bring 7 organizations, that's not necessarily going to score you higher points than if it's just you and one other. So just know that it's not a quantity of those relationships, but the quality of those relationships and how you demonstrate them. And I'll show you that in the application process. The second thing that we're going to award extra points for is anything that will expand services to target inequity through the use of technology, home-based or mobile delivery of services. I am going to quote Sika once again, and she said, hey, when you cannot bring Mohammed to the mountain, the goal is to bring the mountain to Mohammed. And that's exactly what's intended with this. I think many of us have learned that during COVID, bringing services to families where they are was something that we had to do. Many programs who had the funding previously were able to adapt and change, and they were able to do this. Many were not. And so if this is your opportunity to kind of add those services or to add the capacity to your service provision, then that's something that will be rewarded with an extra point. And finally, we are going to award extra points to anything that expands the capacity of programs to better connect families to and youth to mental health, workforce development, or legal services. These three pieces have popped up a tremendous amount during our community conversations and our focus groups. So say you are a childcare program and you're noticing needs for children for mental health, and your proposal is going to help better connect those families to that, then you would earn an extra point. Similarly, maybe you're a summer program primarily, or a youth mentoring program primarily working with middle school and high school kids, and you know that they need better connections to workforce development and or legal services. So that's where this piece has been designed from, is a direct response to what families have shared with us that they need. So the technical requirements of this is you have to use our online application tool. We have given a full 21 days from the date of posting, so these will not be due until Saturday Saturday, May 14th at 5 p.m. But what you will see here is that if for whatever reason you're having some technical difficulties, I know just coming onto this, I called Jacinta and I was like, my internet has crashed. I'm on my hotspot. I'm not sure what to do. And fortunately, it all got back up and working. But say that happens to you and on Friday, you're trying to get all your stuff together. Please make sure that you submit a request for, this specifically is for technical details with the application itself, so that I can help troubleshoot and that we can be connected to you. We don't want to have the situation where someone's trying to submit something and technology is preventing them from getting their proposal in. So please send me an email at info@cscleon.org. Now it says here that phone calls and text messages requesting support will not be accepted. If your internet is down on Friday and you need to call us to tell us that your internet is down, that is okay. We will then document it with an email as soon as it gets back up. I just wanted to kind of put that caveat in there. The other piece that we're now going to go into is that you have to include every component in the application process. There'll be a little star. Every starred item means you have to upload something. In fact, the system won't even let you move forward until you upload something. So that's why I wanted to make sure that you have this document in front of you. And so our best recommendation is that you have this document and you develop very specifically the answers to each of these questions, because the online system will ask very specifically for these things. Each of these will be its own separate item. And the order that it's going to be in your application is actually going to start with your organizational profile, then go to your program narrative. But the program narrative is the highest scored section. So that's why we placed it higher in this document to start. And that's really you telling us who you are, like what you're doing currently, where you're currently serving, who you're currently serving, and any reference to a quality standard or evidence-based practice associated with your current services. This is just to give us a better idea of what you're doing. If you're not currently using quality standards or evidence-based practices, that's okay. I want to be very clear that that doesn't mean that you don't qualify for something, but it is good for us to know and our evaluators to know the types of programs that are out there and the types of materials and resources that you are using. Then you're going to identify needs and or gaps in your current service provision, describe your proposed solution and who that solution is designed for, right? And then we're going into this section on the proposed data collection methods and tools and the description of expected impact. Now, this is where we've started and said that you should comply with the benchmarks and tools identified in the key outcomes and measures. So I'm going to toggle back to our announcements page. And the first item underneath resources is the key outcomes and measures document. It is a database using Excel, and I think I can make it pop up on the screen. Give me just a second. I will make it show up. Is it showing for you guys now? Fantastic. I saw you, Miss C. Thank you. So this is the tool, and there is a whole webinar on this, and I will be glad to post the link to the webinar to understand how to use this tool. The quick version is, let's say that you are applying to, that you're primarily associating with school readiness, and you're going to kind of scroll through this document to say, okay, I think I can influence this academic skills and readiness by increasing problem solving skills, right? So this is a way that you can say, I'm going to collect data here. This is the tool that you would help you kind of select what types of data you want to do. Again, technical assistance is available for this. And at the conclusion of today's webinar and tomorrow's webinar, we'll send everyone who's attended these a quick survey that says, what would you anticipate needing technical assistance with, so that you have access to that over these next 3 weeks to complete your proposal. The other thing that I'll share, let me close this out. And oops, it went away. Give me one moment. I'll go back to this page. We also have something called Funding Options A, and I'm going to pull that up really quick because it also has some suggestions by each domain here for you. So if you're looking, so let's just say that under school readiness, these might be some key outcomes and measures during the summer that you could maybe consider exploring with your expansion of services, and that can help you pick maybe the best tool that you want to use over those 3 months. So this is just, again, it's a resource available to you. I'm going to go back to the actual narrative and talk about what we need to know for your organizational profile. There's going to be the standard stuff like, who are you? How do we get in touch with you? And a brief overview of your agency, your vision, your mission, and history of service provision. While any entity is eligible to apply, our goal is to, again, expand services. So if you've never provided direct services to families, then you might not score very well in this area. Again, it's existing entities to expand services. So we're going to ask you, tell us about what you've done. How have you served the community in the past? Now, I want to just kind of pause here because oftentimes we think of, well, what does that mean to directly serve families? For some, that might be literally feeding them, right? That might be exactly what your service is. For others, it might be providing them technical, might be providing families assistance to get connected to services. Maybe your service is referrals. That counts as a service. So however you describe what your service is, that's what we're asking for you here. We're also then going to ask you to upload several things. An organizational chart that's identifying kind of like who you are, how big your agency is, who the players are involved. And if you are applying as an intermediary, we'd really like for you to show the relationship between you and the other organizations, especially for the proposed expansion. You'll also, if you're an intermediary, need to attach letters of agreement from each collaborating organization. Again, that's as applicable. If you are not applying as an intermediary, then you do not have to upload any letters of agreement from anybody. That wouldn't be required. But if you are applying for those extra points for that collaboration piece, then you will need to have those letters of agreement. In addition, you'll need to show us your division of corporations business registration. So with just even whatever you want to download from Sunbiz is perfectly fine. If you're a nonprofit, we would like a copy of your IRS nonprofit determination letter. That will help us, especially when we get to the contracting process. And then finally, a certificate of insurance and proof of liability coverage. That also, when we get to contracting, I want to let you know that we'll be requiring that you have the ability to add CSC Leon as one of those kind of named entities that's covered. But right now, all we're looking for is what does your current certificate of insurance proof of liability look like? These are just things that you will need to move forward. These items are not scored. Primarily what is scored is going to be that overview of vision, mission, and history of service, and then just checking to make sure that you included all the things that have been asked of you. The third section is the budget section. So we need a current operational budget and a proposed expansion budget. These are going to be two separate documents. What we're trying to show is if you don't get funding, what does your budget look like? And if you do get funding, where does that fit in? What does that look like? Now, I do know that while the
Wanna
CSC
go get your
Beyond
milk? Okay.
our fiscal year is
No,
on,
I'm going. I'll be right back.
you got that,
Get
Jacinta?
intent.
Sorry. Thank you. I tried to put mute all on everyone, but I guess that didn't work out so well. But I hope she gets her milk, whoever that was. So the operational budget, our fiscal year is October 1 through September 30th, but we know some of the programs that are out there, entities that are out there might operate on a January to December fiscal year. Maybe you operate on a July 1 to June 30th fiscal year. If that's you, if you're a July 1 to June 30th, you're probably going to need to upload two of those budgets, because what we want to see is what is your budget for June 1 through August 30th. What does that look like? Again, we have to show that we are not supplanting or duplicating any of that funding. So you might be uploading two budgets for bullet number 1 here, this bullet here. And then the next item that we'll ask you to upload is a proposed expansion budget. And we are asking that you use the provided template. So again, under announcements, we have here sample budget worksheet. If you click on that, it's going to download a sample budget. I'm going to show you very quickly what that looks like. As soon as it opens, here we go. Oh, try that again. Oh, the joys of technology. One more time. Aha, there it goes. So this is a very basic template for you to kind of share. And the reason why I wanted to show it with you is because you'll see kind of these columns C and D. If you've never done a budget and you're like, I'm not kind of sure where to start, this template could be useful for you as well. And we built it in such a way that if you wanted to put in your previous year's budget as you're closing out 21, that you can show kind of, this was a whole complete year of my budget and my actual expenditures. There's a column here for the current fiscal year, and then this is where you would show your request. We built it this way so that it could be a useful tool to anyone who might not be as experienced with building a budget. But let me be very clear that for your operational budget, we want to make it as easy as possible. You do not have to use this for your current operational budget. I have seen budgets for small organizations that are operating on around like a $30,000 a year budget versus some of our larger entities out there that might have, $1 million budget. I know that what goes into creating those budget sheets are very unique to your organization. And for your current operational budget, you upload what you have. We're not asking you to fill this out in this format for your current operational budget. We are, however, asking you to consider these columns for the expansion, because that's going to help us on our end when it comes to contracting. So we're able to show to the community exactly what we're funding, exactly what we're spending. So for expansion budget, we do ask that you use these categories and that you're able to, in each of these next to it, fill out exactly what that narrative is. So if you say salaries, maybe you put $50,000 as your request, and I'm just choosing a nice round number. Writing in what that money would be spent for is where you'll put it here. So you kind of see through here just a lot of very different categories. We tried to be as exclusive, expansive as possible. You do not need to have something for every one of these items. You can have something in just 3 of them. You can have something in just 1 of them, whatever it is. But we try to be very, very broad in the scope of the categories. And we included a salary planning worksheet at the bottom. Again, you do not have to use this, and these titles are completely made up. But it does help you kind of plan out that if you wanted to use this tool to help you prepare your budget, you'll be able to. And what you'll be able to see, you kind of just put in what your request is. If you start filling this out, each of these out, it will automatically populate up here. So if you fill out what your staffing charges are going to be, it will populate up there, and it'll calculate what your match is for the minimum fringe benefits that you can offer, that you might have to pay for employees. Okay, I'm going to finally go back to our last section. Here we go. Hopefully, there we go. The last section is the funding deliverables section, and this is where you're going to list your suggested contract deliverables that include designated program impact. So this is where you say to us, if you fund us, this is what we're going to give you back as your deliverables. This is your proposal. You might say, we're going to serve 100 families, and we're going to demonstrate that those 100 families increase their knowledge of parenting. And that's what you're looking at. So that when we're starting to develop that contract, this is in essence, how are we going to measure your success? That is what we are looking to do. How would you like to be measured using some of the recommendations? So again, I'm going to flip back to funding options A. And again, funding options A is found under announcement on that announcements page, right? Under resources, it's the second bullet, funding options A. This is kind of some suggestions in this last column. You can ignore the first 5 columns, really. These were just some suggestions from our researchers. They do talk about zip codes that we are prioritizing. Hint, hint, you might put, like, if that's where you're looking at for your service expansion, that's definitely how we're going to target inequities. And then you'll see here, these are just some suggestions for what an intended program impact might be. Now, this is not exhaustive. We absolutely need to know how many families you intend to serve, how many neighborhoods you intend to engage. Maybe it's how many things that you're intending to purchase. Maybe it's how many events you're planning to host. You come up with us and say, for this money, I want to do X, and this is how I'm going to show that we were successful. And that is your proposal to be evaluated by our team. And by our team, I mean the evaluation team, and then eventually by the full council. All right, I'm going to go back to our final document. Now, when you get onto the online page, you will see that there's a final section beyond that, and that's just an attestation that everything that you have submitted is as accurate as it possibly can be, and that you understand that you might submit a proposal. Let's say you submit a proposal for $10,000, and then we come back and say, wow, we're really interested in that. However, we only have $5,000. Would you be willing to amend your program deliverables for the lesser amount? That is not our intent. Our intent is to be able to fulfill a request the way that it is written, but we do have to be judicious. While the amount that the council has released for funding sounds like a lot, it will go fast, and we want to try to serve as many proposals as we can. So that might happen. And if it does, you will be given the opportunity to either decline that award or to readjust. So it's kind of like a negotiation process, as opposed to either you accept it or you don't. You will see here on this page everything that we just went over and what the point value is for each section. As I stated, the program narrative section is up to 40 points. And so you can see that's the most important section, so to speak, the highest value section, but you'll see that budget comes shortly after that, and then that proposed funding deliverable section, how you're going to show that you are successful in implementing your proposal, will come next. You'll also see here, as promised, the 3 areas that will earn you extra points. All right, the last thing I'm going to cover is just the timeline, and that's here on this last page. We released the funding announcement on Saturday. It was actually at 10 a.m. and not 12 p.m., but that's okay. Holding our 2 technical assistance webinars. The deadline for entries is Saturday, May 14th at 5 p.m. The council will be meeting on Thursday, May 19th, and they will have, our evaluators will have scored every proposal and made their kind of top tier list. Ultimately, though, the council will have access to every single score and every single proposal, and it will be their choice on what to fund. You will be notified if selected no later than Friday, May 20th. You don't see that date on here. We will try to do our best in notifying on Thursday evening, but it will be no later than Friday, May 20th, and we would start that contracting process the following Monday. Here's where it gets really fun and really tight. In that contracting process, if you are selected, we will need a copy of your W-9. We will require you that you kind of do a couple of steps, and it will be a very short turnaround so that we can distribute funds and begin services on June 1st. It's a tight turnaround. And the last thing that I'll share is that we expect to not only disperse those funds and kind of that allocation method at the beginning of that funding process. All of the funds should be expended by August 30th. And then your final work kind of reporting stuff, including how the money was spent, will be due on September 15th. And any money that was awarded but not spent will be required to be returned. All right. I'm going to stop sharing. I was hoping that that was going to take a lot less time going over, but it definitely went a little longer than I anticipated. The final piece that I will share is on that page. So I will just show you where you apply, and then we're going to open it up for questions and answers. So on that announcements page, right here, apply online. It should open in your screen, and this is where you will go. This is our online funding piece. You'll see down here at the bottom. So all of this information that's listed is all of this is included in that PDF of download the full announcement. So everything that's in here is also in that. You'll see your progress bar right here. And then you'll see where you start. As promised, it starts with organizational profile. It asks for some very specific information, and then it asks you to upload certain pieces. Now, I know that this looks like a very short window. It is not. It is a long text box. You can put, I think it allows up to 10,000 characters. So you have plenty to work with here, but know that it's text only. So oftentimes people might have reports, they want to copy and paste. It might include like a graph. No graphs can be accepted. It literally is text only. I can't progress through this at the time currently because I'd have to fill out all of this stuff, but all of the screens look very, very similar to this. When it is complete, you will receive a confirmation that it has been submitted, and it will actually give you a PDF copy of what it is that you submitted. So you can rest assured if you get your email confirmation, we also received it. All right.
Okay, so Holly, that was a mouthful to say the least. And I know it was a lot of information. We do have questions in the chat, so I'm going to roll back up to the top, and we're just going to start at the top and bring it on down. So there was a question about
Sika, before you get started,
yeah.
I just want to remind everyone that for your question to be on the record, we do need you to write it in. So if you joined us late and you have a question, we're not going to open it up to like raising hands and audible questions because we want to document everything in case you want to share a response with colleagues so that we can create that record. So that's why she's scrolling back up to the top for anyone who joined late. Sorry, Sika.
No, that's okay. So in other words, put your question in the chat, because that's the way that we're going to record it, and we're going to try to answer them here on the webinar, but we'll also do a transcribe of the chat. So the first question has to deal with partial scholarships. So for example, I have 10 girls or 10 people, 10 children in a program, all of which are on partial scholarships. Can I apply to complete those scholarships so that those children do not have to pay at all?
That would be an eligible proposal that could be evaluated. Yes.
All right. Next question, award amounts. I think I answered this. Our funding cap is $2 million. We will look at the proposals. However, we do reserve the right to not fund what you ask for in totality.
That is correct.
For the next question.
Can I add one little piece to that? Thinking about how this is the expansion of services, I just want to remind people that we're asking for your current budget. So let's just say you have currently a $50,000 budget and then you write for $50,000. The evaluators are going to kind of keep that in perspective. Really think through what is your demonstrated need that you're applying for, because we're trying to maximize this pot of funding to the best extent possible. And if you know exactly what it is that you need to solve a problem and an identified gap, that means that you're going to have a stronger chance of actually meeting those deliverables come the end of August. So I just wanted to kind of put that into perspective of more of a kind of a technical assistance of what it is that you're going to ask for.
Which goes right into this next question, which has to do with the recommended or estimated funding that we receive, the estimated funding amounts that we receive from QQ. So, and I put a response in the chat, we need your actual cost. So those were estimations that QQ did, given their research. So it is a round number, 150 per week per child. If your cost is 110, then that's what you should use. If your cost is 175, that's what you should use. So so that those examples were not given to cap your request. It was simply given as trying to give us an estimate of what we might be looking at. All right, next question. And I think this was actually answered, why the legal services, mental health, and workforce were the greatest priority. I think Holly answered this, but in our sessions all the way around, these were three that continued to come up. And so we thought it best, or the council, we did, and the council approved, that we add some options for how to maximize or create a connection for those types of services. So that was the answer to that. The next question, okay, we answered that. That was about expansion of services by completing cost for an individual. Next question was, do points equate to dollars? I wasn't really sure what this meant. I'm going to take a stab at it though. So your application is being scored according to a point system. That has nothing to do with your request. So your request is what it is in line with your expansion of that program and how you explain the program being expanded. The points are only the score of your application and will serve as a way to rank and prioritize. So I think that's what that question meant. I hope we answered that.
That's definitely how I interpreted it. And so again, like a concrete example might be your proposals for $5,000 and you score a 95, and that could have the same score as someone who's asking for $50,000, and they might also have a 95. So
Thank you.
and they might also both be funded.
That was my question. Thank you.
Perfect.
Oh, you're welcome. Absolutely. So the next question, operational budget for the full organization. Yes. So we're asking for two budgets, operational budget for your full organization. Again, the titles that are in the budget are just titles that Holly, we put in there to give you some idea of what we're looking. That being said, please do not omit anyone from your organization. You may use and put in the titles that you have for those persons, but please do not omit anyone. We need the true picture of what your organization's budget is, what it costs you to do business. And then in the program budget, you need to be clear about what it costs you to run those programs so that we can juxtapose, or not we, well, we will, but our evaluators and council can juxtapose that to your request to make sure that those jive together. Next question. Okay, so we already answered that. So what expectations of outcomes does the CSC have for a few months of summer program? So there was programming. The response is you go back to the link to funding options A. And when you pull that up, you will see all those columns. And Holly just said you don't have to worry about 1, 2, 3, 4. You want to look at the zip codes because those are places where our firm has showed us that there are some deficits in those areas. But that last column is how we are anticipating you showing us how what you're doing this summer ties back into the key outcome measures that say we are solving a problem. And in this case, we're trying to fill gaps for the summer. If you know you could do 500 kids, but you only have funding for 400, and these are the things that you do in that program, you're going to ask us for funding for those other 100, and that is going to add another, let's see, 500, 20% of outcomes, the outcomes that you get for these 400 kids. So that last column gives you, and I think that our research firm did a great job of showing all the different outcomes that can happen from investments in a program that feeds into the problem that is identified. So funding options A is what you want to be looking at for that.
And I'll add to that, Sika.
Yes.
I didn't scroll through it, but there is a page for every single one of our priority areas. There's a column for every single one of them. There's actually also a column for stuff for us that's just capacity building that we're also looking at. You can ignore the pages 13 and 14, but for every single priority area listed, there are suggested key outcomes and measures.
Okay, for this next question, I'm going to ask Kelly Adi to unmute because I want to make sure I'm understanding what she's saying. So the question was supplanting. What does that mean? And her comment was, does it mean governmental funding only? The answer is no. Supplanting funding means that we cannot fund a program that already has an earmarked funding source, whether that's general revenue, whether it's a grant from the government, whether it's a grant from the county or city, whether it's philanthropy dollars that you're using to fund that program. So we cannot fund a program that already has an earmarked funding source. Also, we can't replace funding. So let's say you decide to move the funding from this program to go fund that program, and you're going to try to come for CSC dollars to replace that funding. We cannot do that. We have to fund either new and innovative, a different way of doing, or an expansion. Expanding capacity, completing scholarships, because see, now that frees up more money for more people to participate. So Kelly, does that answer your question?
Sort of, but when you're talking about a summer camp that's based on revenue so that kids who can afford to pay help balance out the camps so that we can afford to have them, if we move them out of our budget, meaning we're going to make room for the kids in zip codes where they could come for free, it looks like supplanting, but it's really not. It's unearned revenue that will be completely not available to us that was in the budget in the beginning. So it's like taking kids who could afford to pay out, putting kids who can't afford to pay in.
Okay, but let me ask you this question. So kids who can afford to pay, would they still pay and go?
No, we would take their spots and move them to like the homeless coalition or to Hope Community. We'd say, instead of these 5 girls who pay $200 a week, we're going to take 5 girls from Hope Community and not charge them anything. But it's $1,000 out of our budget that we anticipated being able to earn from the girls who were going to come at $200. It's unearned revenue, which is also the other thing I mean about supplanting, is that you know how you base your budget on what you anticipate to be able to raise? So are you really supplanting if what you're saying is that isn't real money. It's money that we're banking on being able to earn. We don't have a contract for it. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, let me say this.
Yes.
If you are basically taking a program, I'll say it this way, and Holly can hear me and we can get it. So let's say you're taking a program that you normally would charge $200 a girl. You got 10 slots. You normally would charge $200 a girl, and that's what you're expecting to get to be able to run that program. What you're suggesting is we would rather take that program and offer it to girls who are homeless. So asking for the money allows the homeless girls to participate rather than girls who could pay.
Yes. But the budget will look exactly the same.
I don't think that's the planning funding,
I think that we need to.
but
just
we might need to
double-check
talk
that
about that a little
with
more.
legal.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
Kelly, if you'll allow us to put that on our list of questions and have it in that document, and we'll let you know as soon as it's posted.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Holly, the next question has to do with the entire online application. Is there a way to see it before you complete it?
So no, as you progress through, you have to complete each of those bits. That's why we broke it down with bullets in the PDF document, so you know exactly what's asked of you in each section. You know what? Actually, I will do a screenshot and I will download it and have it as a PDF attachment under resources by Wednesday at noon.
And
that.
conversely, in addition to that, the budgeting sheet, is that available to download to play
It
in
is.
before you
Mhm.
upload? Okay.
The budgeting sheet is, and that's on there currently.
Okay. Next question, are the funds reimbursable? No, we are going to disperse monthly.
No, it's a one allocation.
So we are doing one allocation. I'm sorry.
Yes.
One allocation at the beginning. Hopefully everything will go well. We'll get the contract signed and we can get the allocation out June 1st or very shortly thereafter. Then at the end of the contract period, August 30th, you have, I think we said until September
15th.
Yes, to get the final report in, return any unused funds or the report on how the funds were used. In addition to that, let's see. So the next question is, how is the consequence, or what is the consequence if the money is all spent, but the outcomes are less than proposed? Is a repayment possible? So would we recoup those funds?
So yes, we will have a protocol, and that will be part of your contract.
Yeah.
What happens if you don't meet your proposed deliverables? That will be included in the contract language. As soon as that draft is available from legal of what that contract looks like, because it's going to be unique to each one, we will also post that under our list of resources. But you will see that before you sign it.
In addition, though, so let's say, for example, the reason you don't meet the outcomes is because we had a hurricane come through and the hurricane wiped everything out. So we will take that into consideration as we're dealing with the contract. Or there could be something else. Maybe you experience a fire and then that wipes things out. So we will be taking that into consideration as you look at the contract. That's funny. Kelly found the budget sheets. Okay, so good. Can you save progress? We answered that.
I will say you can save progress as long as you're in the app, but if your power goes down and you haven't hit submit and you come back using a different IP address, it likely won't save your progress. So that's why I said don't count on it. It's not like you can log in like you have been able to with, like, say, CHSP, where you have a login, you can share that login with, you can share that application with others. This system does not have that capabilities. Our future system will, but again, this was our simplified process.
Talked about the grant application. We're going to do screenshots. The budget sheet you can download. May have already covered this. Save work it in pieces. We just talked about that. Answer my own questions. Then you can't. Okay. Yep. How do you define administrative costs? We define administrative costs according to what you define it in your budget. So when you put your operational budget together, you have administrative costs. You you use your administrative costs and the corresponding percentage that goes with that. Is there room for adjustment under benchmark impact number 3? Okay, so we'll address
Yes.
that one-on-one.
Yeah, and it is, it's
secondary-
supposed to be, youth is defined the same way as we did in the needs assessment.
Yeah,
So youth is ages 13 to 24. So it does include those transitioning out.
the application can't be saved to resume work in progress, leave the browser open to come
Yes.
back to it. Yes.
Yep.
And that's the last question I have.
And we're at 3:03, only a few minutes over. So again, if you have a question that was not answered today, you can feel free to jump on tomorrow, or if you want, we'll leave the Zoom room open right now and you can drop it in the chat, and it will not be addressed here today in the recording, but it will be addressed on that final list of questions that we're going to post on Wednesday afternoon.
Holly, will you again give the cone of silence date?
Yeah, no, we're in that right now. So no one should be contacting any member of council or any member of staff regarding a potential application. You can submit questions in writing if you would like, and then we can copy everyone in, but you should not be emailing, calling or talking, texting, any of that stuff. Please, our goal is to get those lists of questions between now and Wednesday morning. So again, you can submit them. They will be included in that final record. Is that what you meant, Sika?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that, but in the beginning, and of course, I don't have my notes. You gave a date for
Technical assistance request.
Yes, that's
So,
the one I'm looking for.
I'll revise that. So on Wednesday, when we post that list of TA questions, we'll also send you just a quick survey that says, do you need technical assistance completing elements of the application? It'll ask you to tell me what it is that that you need help with, and to give me your contact details, so that we can then schedule, we'll have a series of just kind of webinars or maybe training videos on how to do something based on those questions.
What are the
And
start and
so-
stop dates? Start
Yep, so-
date, June 1st. Last date, August 30th. Final report submitted, September 15th. Another question, what if you have more than one program? Yes, but you need to do a separate application for each program because they may not go to the same evaluator. Separate application.
Okay.
Okay.
Sika, I'm gonna let them,
Nope, we're
gonna
good.
cut it off. But
Mhm.
feel free, you guys can drop. Everyone, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you. The recording is available on our YouTube station, and it will be posted in that resources section. Thank you so much for joining us. If you have more questions, feel free to join us again tomorrow at 9 a.m. And happy Monday.
Thank you, everybody.
Again, I'm just hanging out in case somebody has a final question that they're going to drop in the chat, but we're done recording. Thank you everyone for being here.
Okay, we're still on.